Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lorie Jones, owner of Fearless Financial Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
Good morning. I'm so excited to see all of you here again. And thank you so much for listening. Please like, follow, subscribe, whatever it is the button on your little podcast thing says to do that thing so that we can share these stories with more people and you'll be updated and alerted when new ones come out, which I'm super excited about. So this one today, we're talking with Cristin Browne, and I loved this part of our message. So she is, quite frankly, just larger than life. She's a helicopter pilot. She just does all sorts of cool things that you're like she should have her own superhero movie kind of, right? Like that's how cool she is. And we were talking a little bit about what she was worried about or what she was scared about. And she says that, knowing that she's going to survive no matter what, like if things don't happen the way she has them planned, she's going to be just fine. And that courage of stepping out, even though the fear is there, and that resonates with me because it's the idea of fearless. It's the idea of stepping one foot into the unknown. It's the idea of trying, even if you're scared to death. But I asked her a question and I said, well, how do you know how to balance that fear versus that knowing that you got this and you can take it? Like, how do you get the courage to find that first step? And this is what she said. And I love this so much. In fact, I did write it down and put it on my vision board. She said, I think it's knowing that stripped of all of my accomplishments, I'm still enough. She says, that doesn't mean I don't have goals and ambitions and I don't want to achieve, but this is important. Stripped of all my accomplishments, I'm still enough. And if I could write and imprint that message on everybody's heart, I would do it in the whole wide world, because stripped of all your accomplishments, you're still enough. I am so excited to get to this interview with Cristin today. Let's get started. Good morning, Fearless Females. We're here with Cristin Browne. She is the founder of Brave Peak Capital, and I'm so excited that she's joined us today. You've got an amazing story, and I'm just really excited to hear it. Thank you so much, Cristin.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure to be here.
So my first question is always the same. I'm a reader. I love books. What is your favorite book?
I also love books. I mostly listen to them on audio. That's my way that I read the most, but my favorite book is Predictably Irrational. Don't make me recount the author, but I've always been a consumer of books about psychology, what makes people tick. I think that's one of the reasons why I love business so much, because every business is a people business. So Predictably Irrational is about how humans think they know how they're going to react to things and act. And they don't. Humans are rational creatures, but a lot of what we do as humans is predictably irrational. So they go through a lot of different examples about why that's true. It's a quick read, but it's one of those that I've read several times.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, because I know in finance, like you learn the way things are supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. And then behavioral finance kind of teaches you the way things actually do happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. Markets financial markets behave in irrational ways, but sometimes predictably irrational ways if you actually understand the underbellies of human motivation.
Oh, well, that's great. I actually go through and look at my list of suggestions that all of my podcast guests have given me. I just order all of them and set them in a pile that I read. So I'm super excited to get to that one. That sounds great.
That's awesome.
So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get started? What do you do today? Kind of, who are you? Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I always start with, I'm from New Jersey. And the reason why that's really important to me is I'm a child of 9/11, very, very profoundly. Living in New Jersey, obviously a lot of people commute from North Jersey to New York City for work. And I viscerally remember being in high school and when the Twin Towers went down, and a lot of my classmates had parents, loved ones that worked in New York City. And it's a really strong memory of mine. And so that was a big motivator and reason why I ended up going to West Point and joining the military. So really my reasons were threefold. It was, hey, I saw what could happen in the world and wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself. I was always an athlete, and joining the military, West Point in particular, is one of those places that you both have to have strong academics and be athletic. So it was a really good fit in that light. And the last being that we're on a financial podcast. It's a way to get a really good education fully funded by Uncle Sam. For the return for that education is to serve at least 5 years active duty in the Army. So went through the academy. It was a really good fit for me. I thrived there. I really liked it. I liked the structure. I liked the classes. I liked the academics, and chose to go aviation as my branch after the academy. So my reason for that was largely because I wanted to lead troops in combat. It was a huge motivator for me. And as a woman at the time, one of the ways to go combat arms was to go aviation. Armor and infantry, which are the traditional combat arms branches, were closed to women at the time. So aviation was my way to know that I was going to be able to get in the fight. And I very much did. I spent the next 8 years active duty Army, deployed twice to Afghanistan. After my second deployment, I had the opportunity on that second deployment to lead a company. So 40 guys, and they were all men at the beginning. 10 aircraft, trained them up for 9 months, deployed to Afghanistan, and brought them home. And that was the completion of my 8 years that I had to serve. And I picked my head up and I looked around and I said, okay, what's next? That was an awesome ride, and decided that I was going to leave the military and join the corporate world. So I attended the Harvard Business School, spent 2 years there, and really settled on wanting to be in smaller businesses for my career. So spent the next 5 years in tech, mostly doing go-to-market strategy and sales work. And a year ago, decided I am really going to focus and hone in on small business and take a bet on myself by going out and buying a lower middle market business, which is what Brave Peak Capital is all about.
I love that. I love that you kind of early on, sometimes those really pivotal events in your life do make a difference as to who you want to be. And it's something just clicks in your brain and you're like, oh, I know exactly what I want to do. And 9/11 was a huge event, but I do think that, for all of us around the country, but it didn't make all of us know exactly what we wanted to do. So what was it about that event that sent you directly to the military, that you knew what you wanted to be?
Yeah, again, I was 18. So 18-year-old Cristin was making very different decisions than today, Cristin, reflecting back. It was both an emotional and a pragmatic decision for me. Emotional meaning I remember, you have core memories in your life. I remember so viscerally standing on the bay, which right on the bay where I grew up in New Jersey, you can look across and see Wall Street. And they cast two lights up into the sky to represent where the Twin Towers were after they fell. And I remember standing on the bay with my family and looking across and just thinking, I have to do something about this. I don't know why, but that was the emotional part of it, saying this is not okay. What part do I have in making sure that this doesn't happen again? Mm-hmm. And again, there's absolutely the pragmatic side, the logical side. Like I said, I was always an academic. I loved athletics. It was a place that I thought that I could excel and thrive, and it was a good fit for me. So there was that part of it as well.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for your service too. That's huge. I think That's really important. Cristin, tell me a little bit about what's the best investment you've made in yourself. If you can kind of look back over your whole career trajectory to where you got today, can you think of something where you're like, oh gosh, if I hadn't done that thing, I don't think I'd be where I'm at today.
Yeah. So starting my first Roth IRA is the very pragmatic example. And I'm serious. And, back to my core memories, that this might be the theme of this podcast. When I was waiting for flight training, I was in a holding pattern. And when that happens, you end up on different duties with different people. So I was on a guard duty. I was on a 24-hour guard duty with someone who was 20 years my senior. And again, I was fresh out of school. And on that 24-hour guard duty, we were sitting there across the table from each other. And he said, let me teach you something. And finance was not part of my vocabulary. It's not something that we really talked about growing up. It's not really something that they teach you in high school or conventional education, not really something they teach you at the military academies. There's lots of other things to talk about, and we all get paid exactly the same thing. It's just not taught. So he decided to give me a little lesson in personal finances 101. And I had a little bit of money at the time because you do get paid as a cadet, and you get a 0% loan to kick off your career as a part of the package from graduating from the military academies. So I had a little bit of money, and he said, "What are you going to do with that money?" And I said, "I don't know. It's in my savings account." And he goes, "Oh, let me teach you about compounding interest." And we sat there, and he opened up a Vanguard Roth IRA for me, alongside me. And then he said, "Look, Cristin, for the next 8 years of your career, every time you get promoted, every time you get a pay increase, every time you deploy, don't just come back and spend all that money." He said, "Take 10, 20% of it or like the delta of the increase and enjoy it. But then take the rest and save it, invest it, max out your Roth IRA every year." And he said, then at every time you're at a pivotal decision point in life, like at the 8-year mark when you can get out of the military, it's not going to be a 100% financial decision. Finances will be a part of it, but you'll never, if you invest early and often, then you won't ever be beholden to the almighty dollar. It will be a tool, not a burden. And that man is still to this day, I can't remember his name. I remember his face and I remember the conversation, but he changed my life because it just changed the way that I thought about money, investing, my own power over both of it. And I did exactly what he said, and it put me in a position to make a pivot at the 8-year mark, to take a bet on myself with Brave P Capital. It met many, many things along the way that I never made a ton of money, but what I did make, I was smart about it.
Oh, I love that. I love that answer at a 10. That is the best thing.
Thanks. And I do love that story, and I want to share it as broadly as possible because it did change my life. I just, for one of my nephews, he just turned 18. And when he was born, I put a little bit of money away for him rather than give him gifts for his birthdays and Christmas. I put money away, and promised his mother that for his 18th birthday, I would give him the compounded gift and show him what that exactly looked like. So I just mailed him his 18th birthday gift, which was from cousin Cristin, a giant Excel spreadsheet and a check. He's like, thanks. But if you think when you're 18, that can have a really profound impact on you. And I hope he does continue to take that and continue to compound it for the rest of his life. Because then when he's my age, he'll have the same power that man gave me so many years ago.
Yeah, I watch my kids who have grown up with a financial advisor, and the average age to own your own house now is at that 38 to 42 years before you buy your first house. And I have kids buying theirs at 23 and 25 because of that exact reason, the compounding interest, the consistent savings. And I do think that message can change the world. So I'm so excited that you're spreading the message of financial security and in a way that makes people excited about it, because that man that you talked to didn't just tell you something. He changed your life. He made it relevant to you. He made it exciting.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It wasn't just 1 + 1 = 4 over time. It was power it would give you, the autonomy it would give you, the freedom it would give you. I sound cliche because that's like what your podcast is all about, but it's the freedom. It's absolutely true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What is the worst advice someone gave you? Can you think back on a time during your journey where someone was like, they gave you some advice and it was really bad advice, and did you take it or did you not take it? Or talk to me about that.
Yes. So another part of my story is right before I graduated from West Point, I had a very serious back injury. I fell off of an obstacle and had a burst fracture of my first lumbar vertebrae, meaning I broke my back. So I ended up in the hospital room 6 weeks before graduation. My life was turned completely upside down. I thought that I had this very profound trajectory, and all of a sudden, all of that was taken away. And the advice I got at the time was, it's probably a good idea to accept your circumstance. And I had finished my academic requirements at that point. So academically, all I had to do was finish my exams and I would be able to graduate. But physically, I was not physically qualified to be an officer in the military. So the advice was graduate, take your diploma, but don't take your commission. Just that very rarely does that happen. But in those types of circumstances, if you're medically not qualified to join the military, then you could do, they have this system that you just graduate, but don't commission. Whereas normally that would go hand in hand, because that would be the best trajectory. And I, again, 18-year-old, I guess at the time I was 21, 22, laying in the hospital bed, unable to move, looking at the ceiling, said, thanks, but no thanks. I'll figure this out. And, as the trajectory goes, I was given a courtesy, there are people absolutely out there that lay their necks out to allow me to try. I was given a courtesy commission, spent a year in rehabilitation to be able to then get enough waivers to go to flight school and then have the career afterwards in the military. But just accept what you've been given and accept your circumstances was not the best advice I've ever had.
No. And did it take you a half a second or like 5 days to figure out that wasn't good advice?
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
Yeah.
I knew what I wanted. I didn't know it was possible though.
Mm-hmm. But you wanted to try.
But I wanted to try. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I think it's really interesting to kind of look at, when I ask that question about bad advice, I get people who are like, yeah, I kind of instantly knew that wasn't right for me. Like it might have been right for other people, but like for me, I was going to try anyway. Just a little bit fearless is what I call it. Just you're scared to death. You're not sure it's going to work, but you're going to try it anyway.
Yeah. That's accurate.
What about a situation that you could go back and do differently? Is there anything that you've done along your journey where you're like, oh gosh, if I knew then what I know now, I would have just done that a little bit differently?
Yeah. I want to know, given who could potentially listen to this, how exactly I want to tell this story. Absolutely. I've done a lot of work in the last few years on self-awareness, and it's part of, I think, comes with getting older and what your strengths are, what your superpowers are, and where some of your growth edges still remain. And one of mine is absolutely, I can be a fearless female, which means that energy channeled in the moment and not in the right direction can mean I blow my top, can be a bit of a hothead. And part of, my growth and maturation again is taking a beat, taking a breath, not just being in reaction mode. So there was a situation in my last job before I started Brave Peak Capital, and my boss made a comment to one of my employees in someone that worked directly for me. So, my boss was 2 skip levels, in a way that didn't sit well with me. And it was in a public forum. I was very upset about it. And rather than take a beat and handle that situation rationally, I stormed in to his office after the situation, closed the door, but it was one of those like fishbowl offices. So it was glass, So while people couldn't hear what was happening, they could see what was happening. And it's not something that the way I handled that situation, the way I spoke to him was not something that I'm proud of.
I think we all have things like that where if that's actually why I asked the question, is because because I've had times where I'm like, oh gosh, if I could go back, I would do it differently. And this is exactly how I would do it differently, so that someone maybe doesn't have to make my mistake in order to.
Yes, absolutely. And the way that I would done it differently is, either later that day or potentially the next day when I have processed why I was so angry. What about me? What about the employee? What about the boss? Like, what are all the dynamics that were at play in that moment that made me so lit? Actually being able to put all those things together in a rational way and explain what I thought the impact was across the board on that situation and how we could work together to build that bridge to make it better in the future and make sure that something like that didn't happen again would have absolutely been the way that I would handle the situation given the opportunity again.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really valuable. I think we're all hotheads in some way. I know I am. I know I react. And you're right. With maturity, you kind of learn to take a step back and sort of think about it an extra second or two. Sometimes it doesn't help, but a lot of times that's all it takes is just to maybe some deep breathing exercises. Maybe that's what I need is some deep breathing exercises so I don't go from 0 to 10 all at once.
And yes, I will tell you, I have absolutely gotten tools since then to do exactly that. You feel the heat start to build and just
that 4 square breathing. 4 breaths in, hold it for 4 breaths. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I like to say I'm a very sometimes confusing, sometimes interesting, depending on the audience, combination of a corporate executive, entrepreneur, military, pilot, and hippie. I'm very into the yoga, go outside in my backyard and take my shoes off and ground and then get right back to it. So yes.
I love it. So if you could go back and talk to yourself at the early part of your career, just as you were 21, 22, just getting ready to get started, what advice would you have for that young lady?
Slow down. Enjoy the ride. Take deep breaths in the moment when it is good and sit with it when it's not, knowing that it all is temporary.
I like that. And I'm wondering, do you think that would have, because you strike me as somebody who is just so determined and ambitious and works so hard, your advice to slow down, would that have changed that personality, that go-getter personality?
No, I think that it would have allowed for more joy in the process, though, not being wound so tight all the time. And I think you can be ambitious and a go-getter and work really, really hard without it feeling like a constant sprint all of the time. There's times to sprint, absolutely. But there's times to slow down and smell the roses as well. And I think that balance is what in the long term of life, which is a marathon, not a sprint. And oh, by the way, what is it all for anyway? All of that is equally as important as the check marks that we put on the scoreboard.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Joy in the journey, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
What scared you the most when you started out? And does it still scare you?
Yeah. I put my career into a couple of different buckets. It's, military Cristin and then post-military Cristin, and blending those two things is absolutely a part of what I'm doing now. But failure absolutely scares me. And it's pragmatically, it's really interesting to me as I think about my own journey with that failure. In my head, I know that failure is inevitable. I know failure is necessary. I know failure is a path on the journey, and you learn so much from it. And as I think about my own failures, I've learned so much from them along the way, and yet it's still scary.
Yeah.
So that is my own work that I still constantly tell myself that at the end of the day, I know that I have so much privilege in my life, and I can only really fail so far. I mean, I can live in a tent in the woods. I have that skill set. And if I lose everything, like, a homegirl's still going to survive. And that's okay. So knowing that is really empowering. But at the same time, it's the fear of the uncertainty, the fear of the unknown. All that's really hard. The courage part of it is stepping into it, even though I know that fear is there.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we all do. We all know that failure is part of it, and like stepping into that and kind of understanding that we grow and learn from that failure, but nobody wants to fail, right?
Right.
How do you
Yep.
balance that?
Yeah. Is that you want me to answer that question? How do you balance that?
If you have an answer, absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's knowing that stripped of all of my accomplishments, I'm still enough. But that doesn't mean that I don't still have goals and ambitions that I want to achieve.
Mm-hmm. I like that. That stripped of all your accomplishments, you're still enough. Mm-hmm. So so you don't take failure personally. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. That's a really good way of looking at things. Did you face any unique challenges because you were a woman, Cristin?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know where to start with that question. Yeah, I was the only woman when I took over my company. So if you want me to, I've got dozens of stories that we could probably just have a podcast on that if I thought through them. But on my second deployment, one of the very specific stories that are coming to mind was, where do I sleep? The way that the base was set up was, when we fell in on the base we were at, was called Jalalabad. The flight line where the helicopters were was mostly set up for men's sleeping quarters. And there were 6 rooms to these little wooden shacks. And so it was a free sleeping space essentially. And so men and women were not mixed in those shacks. And so when I fell in on the previous company, the company commander that I took over for was a man. So it didn't make any sense. Like, I couldn't just replace room for room. So the first decision was to put me in a shipping container by myself right on the flight line, which I slept in for about a month. And that wasn't, there's a lot of reasons why that wasn't the right call. Then the next decision was, okay, well, you can sleep on a different part of the forward operating base with the women who are on staff, because they were trying to make a group of 6 women so that they could put together a shack essentially. But if that was the case, then I would be a solid 10, 15-minute walk from the flight line. And if there was emergency in the middle of the night, or if there was a last minute approval that needed to happen, my team would be far away from me, which also didn't make any sense. So it was basically working with those levers and working with my boss and the staff and saying, okay, how are we going to make this work? Because here's the left and right limits that I'm willing to sacrifice. Here's the left and right limits that I'm not willing to sacrifice. And here's really what's best for the unit at the end of the day, because that's the most important thing. How are we going to make this work? So we figured it out. We, one shack that was right there on the flight line was converted into a women's quarters. So it was like the chaplain and the intelligence officer and the personnel officer, who were all women, moved from kind of the main base out onto the flight lines so that they could live with me, because they weren't going to ever have to be woken up in the middle of the night in the same way that I was.
Well, yeah. It's good that you managed to figure it out. I was so interested because you talked about being the only woman and having control, being in charge of several men. Mm-hmm. How'd that work out?
Yeah. So my experience across the board, from even the time at the academy, generally class sizes, the academy was like 10 to 30. I think we graduated about 13% women. So classes were about 10 to 15 people. So there's usually one or two women in every class, if you think about the math, all the way to, my time in company command. And across the board, I would say that I would split it being a woman mattering in about the 10th percentile. So at both sides of the curve, about 10% of people thought it was really cool. It's like, that's awesome. Like, yes, whether they were women themselves or had daughters or wives or what have you, they thought it was really, really awesome that there was a woman in that seat. About 10 to 15%, depending on the scenario, you're never going to win them over. They just don't think you should be there. You're a burden. They just, whether it's subconsciously or consciously, you don't belong, you've done something different. Diversity, equity, inclusion is the only reason why you're sitting in that seat. There's absolutely them. And I think I spent a lot of energy trying to win some of them over and realizing that's very hard to do. And then there's 80% that just don't care one iota. Are you confident? Can you do your job? Are you a good leader? Do I respect you? I don't care what's,
What gender, race, etc.
What gender, race, etc. you are. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's so cool. That's neat.
Yep.
I think that's great. I think that's a good way of putting it. Cristin, what is the thing you are most proud of?
It's a hard question to answer. I'm most proud of my integrity and my values. I feel like I've been in a lot of different scenarios in my life so far, and I hopefully have lots of life left to live, and have had to make difficult decisions or have personally gone through ups and downs. And this quote has come to mind. It's from the academy, but I think it's really fitting here. Choosing the harder right over the easier wrong has always been my path, and I sleep really well at night.
So did you sit down and figure out what your values were early on and make decisions based on those values? Or did you just come to a hard place and figure out what your values were? How did you do that?
Yeah, I think I was raised with a certain set of values. And then I think that many of those have been reinforced along the way. And honestly, in the last couple of years, I have sat down and wrote them out as a part of my decision-making framework. So integrity is absolutely one. Freedom, autonomy is another. Mm-hmm. Connection is another. So, authentic connection. I want the people that I surround myself with know that I really care. Sometimes too much, but just really care. So authentic connection with community, friends, loved ones. And joy, having fun along the way, kind of what I alluded to earlier. So if my decision making is around all of in service of those things, then I know I'm on the right path.
I think that's really important. And I think that even as you Brave Peak Capital gets going and you find that business and you become, I think it's important that you keep those values, that you have that, for both yourself and your employees, because I found a lot of times that companies fail when they don't have not just good leaders, but leaders who live by values, and the people on the team kind of want that company to succeed because they believe in the same things you believe in. And like you said, surrounding yourself with people that have those same kind of, authentic connection, beliefs, and integrity. I think that's something that's often overlooked in business.
Yeah. And if it takes me another 2 months or another 2 years to find the right business and, hopefully at some point groups of businesses, I'm going to find it, and it's going to be the right one for me because I know what I'm looking for. And that's just it. I can be the fearless warrior that's going to fight like heck for what I believe in. And I also am going to fight like heck for my people and keep the humanness and compassion and the human part of it and compassion in the business, and that I really, really do care for my people and my customers and the ecosystem as a whole. And the right people will gravitate towards that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I bet. I'm so looking forward to seeing what you come up with and how your trajectory goes from here, because we're just getting a snapshot of who Cristin Browne is right now. But as you move forward with those like fearless ideals and your values and stuff like that, I'm super excited to see who you turn into in the future.
Thanks, Lorie.
Any advice for a young lady who's just kind of starting down this path that you were on? And you can take that question however you want it, but any way to help her succeed and be successful like you?
Yeah. Well, I think the first one is define what success means to you, because don't let social media, don't let your parents, don't let anyone else tell you what success is, because it can mean a lot of different things. I could go on and on about that. So don't sprint towards a goalpost that is not really even what success looks like for you, because while society might tell you that that's the right thing, you're going to get there and you're just going to feel empty because that wasn't really what you wanted. And that takes work. And that just takes time and experience too. But I think knowing what success looks like for you. I think the second is never be afraid to reinvent yourself. Just because you decide that this is the direction in one moment doesn't mean that you can't pivot along the way. It's, we're all, as women, as humans, constantly redefining ourselves. So don't ever be afraid of that. Very few things in life are absolute and permanent, if anything.
Yeah, I love that thought. I had a team member who was trying to decide at like age 20 or 21 or something like that, what she was going to do. And I am like, the good news is you've got like years to figure this out. And if you do it wrong or you don't like where you end up, like you can pivot, like you can change, you can be something different. So I think that's so important to remember, is that you're not making a decision. Even I heard of a 90-year-old 87 or something like that, who learned how to do the trapeze artist on the circus. And I'm like, if she can do that at that old, there's nothing limiting me. There's no choices that are going to be stuck in cement that I have to, I can always pivot or change. So I love that you said that. Cristin, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I really appreciate your story. If I have a young lady who wants to get in touch with you and ask questions, how does she do that?
Sure. I really enjoyed the conversation, so I appreciate you having me on. And I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you can look me up on LinkedIn. I think my how to spell my name is in the show notes, and or you can reach out to me on email, cristin.browne@bravepeakcapital.com.
Well, thank you so much. I've really appreciated your story.
Likewise. Have a great one.